Hello, once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Empire State of Baseball, your podcast center for New York baseball. Episode number 59, August 28th of the year 2023. We are airing on Twitch, X, or Twitter, whichever you prefer, and YouTube, powered by StreamYard. Well, gentlemen, we are on the last week of August. I can't believe Labor Day weekend is just a few days away. The summer absolutely flew. And for both of our teams, season's basically over now. And it's terrible to say, but we're going into a Labor Day weekend where, from a New York standpoint, all we can think about right now is football, because we haven't had a baseball show that we came in and really enjoyed for several weeks now. But Richard, how are you feeling on this fine Monday evening?
We're closing out the summer with a summer shandy today, and it's sad just to see the calendar turn once again. Another month, just a couple days, September, Labor Day weekend, and almost a New Yorkless postseason for Major League Baseball. So obviously tonight's show is going to be more covering the final month that is the baseball regular season. We have a triple play segment that we're going to get into later on tonight. Thomas, how are you doing on this fine Monday evening?
Doing good. Summer did fly by, and looking forward to not having to watch the Yankees anymore. Still occasionally will turn them on. And I'm excited for that not to be an option. It's not there, and I can just watch other things that can maybe bring me joy.
Yeah. Right now, it's looking forward to the winter sports, football in particular for the New York teams, hockey especially with both the Devils, Rangers, and probably Islanders being all competitive. If you like the Knicks and you're into basketball, you got to hope with the Knicks a little bit. The Nets not so much, but right now the Mets and Yankees are soon to be irrelevant in this town. As soon as the New York football landscape. I mean, you have the hottest team in the NFL in the city of New York, which doesn't happen very often. Every single story, radio show.
I can't wait for that heat to be a crashing burn. It is going to be. I am sitting back and with my popcorn, just ready for the absolute mess that is going to happen. It's going to be incredible.
If that happens, it's going to be on the Giants side. It's not going to be on the Jets side.
I don't know what has ever you have
raring to go.
I don't know what history has that you could look back on to think this will be different.
Well, every once in a while, when it comes to history, it's got to end somewhere, whether the good or the bad. And we're probably going to see it this year with the bad on the Yankees side, probably finishing under 500 for the first time in what seems like an eternity. We'll see if the Jets could maybe that does a little bit of reverse. Maybe the Yankees now finishing as a losing team maybe catapults the Jets to a winning team. We'll see what happens. We'll see if the Jets and Giants both continue their the hot talk on the radio throughout the regular season. But we also have a hot show this evening that we have to get. Full segment tonight. We're going to start off with the Empire Express, where we'll be talking both New York Mets and New York Yankees. A lot to discuss with the two teams, despite both teams kind of being in the gutter right now. Both last-place teams in their respective divisions, so we'll get to that in a moment. Chooch's pick of the week is back once again. We'll see what matchup Chooch would like to highlight this week. See if he can continue his hot stretch lately. 6-5 winning record. Can he grow on that? We'll have the triple play segment, as Rich mentioned earlier, and ending with a fun game, a player to be named later. But starting first, Empire Express, latest on the Mets and the New York Yankees. Looking at this past weekend set, Mets lost 2-1 in the 3-game set to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Yankees also losing their set 2-1 with the rival Tampa Bay Rays. Gentlemen, there was a brief hope, maybe more so with the Mets. We were discussing it a little bit last week. There could be a miracle run. If the Mets end up taking, could they take 6 of 7, maybe inch up the standings? And that kind of deflated. The balloon popped after the last 2 series. They are playing this week, though, a very ice-cold Texas Rangers team. Yankees starting off with a 4-game set with Detroit. Joe, let's start with you real quick. What are your thoughts right now on the Mets coming off of last week, the disappointing week overall, but coming in against a cold Texas team?
Yeah, I mean, last week was basically their chance to say, we were for real. And the Mets continue to do what the Mets have done all year. It's anytime a game comes up where you say, okay, this could be the point where we could at least make it a little fun for us, they lay an egg. Now, part of this series was Ohtani coming to New York. Ohtani doesn't come here very often, and who knows where he's going to be next year.
Won't be coming here in the winter, so.
Right. So there was a little bit of an anticipation to see Ohtani. It certainly felt as times when at least Ohtani was at bat and running the bases that there were more Ohtani fans than Met fans in the ballpark.
Yes, sir.
But at the end of the day, basically, unless the Mets and they've shown no evidence, they're not capable of doing it because they got guys like Carrasco and McGill in the rotation who are not going to string wins together. Unless the Mets win 9 games in a row, you're not going to, there is no run. There's nothing to see. So now it's just what storylines can emerge, what players can put themselves in a position to potentially get themselves a spot or an invite for next year. DJ Stewart is one of those guys that's been playing well for the Mets, has shown a little bit of pop. Can he be a guy who's, a fourth, maybe fifth outfielder for this team heading into next season? Sure, why not? You got Aruz and Ortega and guys like that. None of them have particularly shown anything unbelievable or something that would make you think they're going to stick around past this year. So that's going to be the question. Vientos is back, I think, and I think they will bring Beatty up as September turns over. August turns over into September, but other than that, other than watching some of the kids, there's nothing really to watch left.
Now, Joe, you mentioned emerging storylines, and there was a storyline that certainly emerged in Metstown, and more of not just a storyline, but a rumor involving Pete Alonso. A lot of talk that Pete Alonso was offered in trade talks, specifically with the Milwaukee Brewers. There's been a lot of back and forth in there. We really don't know what's true and what's not. But what I do believe is this, guys, where there's smoke, there's fire. What do you guys make of some of these rumors that we're hearing around Pete Alonso potentially getting traded in the offseason? We saw Nightingale had a bomb of a tweet yesterday that got pulled down, but that's Bob Nightingale for you. But any truth to these rumors, do you guys think? Will Alonso find himself a new home come this offseason?
I've been saying, honestly, since last offseason, I think there is a chance that is going to happen just because why haven't they extended him yet? I think there could be truth or speculation or whatever. Maybe he doesn't want to be a Met. Maybe Pete doesn't I don't see him as like a big city guy. I was trying to do some research into Pete Alonso before. He was from Tampa. Don't think he wants to go back to Florida, but he's like an outdoorsy kind of guy. Is he someone that would feel more comfortable in Milwaukee, or would he feel more comfortable in a smaller town? I don't know. It seems weird that they have, Cohen has more money than God to spend on players, yet he hasn't re-signed his big power hitting first baseman. And I think it could be that maybe Pete doesn't want to sign, or they aren't valuing him. Everything about it has seemed weird for a year now. And maybe they do move him, and if they do, that would be, we'd probably have to get a huge return. I think he's 1 year left on his. Yep. So you're going to get him for 1 year. So I guess I don't know how big of a return you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to be signing him, but I don't know. It seemed weird for a year now. So we'll see if it gets weirder this offseason.
Yeah, we'll see what happens too. And I said it in our offseason episodes this past offseason. And again, crazy to think we're closer to our next offseason than the prior one. But last offseason was really the one to start exploring that Pete Alonso extension, especially seeing how the Aaron Judge situation played out the prior 2 off seasons. That was your chance to avoid that type of situation where now you can have Alonso coming into next year. Maybe he's healthy all year. He ends up hitting 50 home runs. And then what's going to happen? Boom. His value is going to absolutely explode. But last season really was, in my opinion, the offseason to do it. And they did it with Jeff McNeil. I think both of them were expected to hit free agency around the same time, roughly. And you signed one, but you didn't extend the other. And when there's smoke, there's fire. I agree.
One's going to cost a lot more than the other,
which is also very true. But one thing I want to call out with that Nightingale tweet, basically saying that he's expected to be traded. The thing with the Mets right now is that anyone who's not under contract after next season will be up for trade. The biggest name of that being is Pete Alonso. We saw some of the veteran guys get moved this past trade deadline. But Pete Alonso is the biggest name currently on the Mets major league roster, and he is the biggest one who doesn't have a contract after next season. So I think there's a little bit of smoke there. I hope that they do end up giving this guy an extension, because I love Pete Alonso. He gives you a nice muscle power in the middle of the order. I love when he's doing the whole home run derby thing. He seems to be the heart of the team. But that's also a little concerning because there's been a lot of clubhouse issues, supposedly not. And if he's the heart of your team, a little bit concerning there too. But I guess, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two ways to think about this. First, from a fan's perspective, you don't want Alonso leaving this team ever. Right. I mean, this is a guy who should be your all-time home run leader before, we are halfway through this decade. He's one of those guys that you look at and think he should be a career Met. He's the kind of guy that the Mets have always let go in the past because of money concerns. So when Cohen took over the team, we thought that stuff was over. So there's that side from the fan perspective. I want to see number 20 as a retired number, and we're going to get into those in a few minutes. But at the end of the day, he is already a Met, the likes of which we haven't seen probably since Piazza and Delgado have been here. The Mets haven't had that kind of power hitter. But from the front office perspective, I can see
so disrespectful to Jason.
I can see what the front office is looking at in terms of first baseman. I think there is a gap in perception of value here. I think that's partially coming from Alonso. I'm sure Alonso wants a $250 million contract, which of course all players do. But the fact of the matter is first basemen do not get that money in this day and age. They most of the time are not paid like Manny Machado is, who plays a Gold Glove third base, or an outfielder like Aaron Judge is paid. Those guys play a position. They usually play it in a Gold Glove caliber, and they're usually tremendous hitters at the plate. Now, Pete is one of those, but he's not multiple ones. Matt Olson signed for an 8-year, $168 million contract, averaging $21 million a season. And Matt Olson, by most standards, is probably a little bit of a better player than Pete. Pete probably has more power, but Olson's a better fielder. Paul Goldschmidt, 5 years, 130. Granted, on the other side of 30 years old, but averaged $26 million per year.
I think going into this year, you would say Pete Alonso is a better player than Matt Olson. I think Matt Olson this year, granted, in the most dynamic offense in the league, is extreme, is flourishing. True. But I mean, Pete Alonso and the other, he's also never hurt. I know he got hurt this year, but that was fluky, wasn't it? It was like a fluky thing that happened to him. But yeah, so you don't count that as like an injury guy. Just going through his game log from since 2019, he played 161 games. Then he played 57 out of 60 in the COVID season, 152, 160 last year, and he's at 123 this year. So he'll end up, in the 130s because he missed some time with his hand. He's available. He's dependable. He's not the greatest fielder, but he's not going to kill you at first base. But I mean, he's a guy that I don't know why the Mets would want to get rid of, and maybe they're not going to want to pay $250 million to. But I can't imagine they'd get outbid by anyone. That's
the thing, and so it becomes a waiting game here. If he gets to free agency and the market proves that it's not going to get him his $250 million, and he comes near that Matt Olson or that Paul Goldschmidt valuation in the mid to low 20s, I mean, that's what you're going to end up. Let's say Pete gets $25 million over 8 years. That's probably more realistic than $30 million over, 8 years.
How upset would Met fans be if Alonso finished out next year, then was free agent, and then he replaced Rizzo with the Yankees? Oh boy, would that be what the episode of Empire State of Baseball in early 2025 we would have.
Oh my goodness!
Just
I'm saying
Joe would turn the color red that we might have never have seen.
I don't think Cohen would let that happen. And again,
I don't think so either. But
there's that little agreement the Mets and Yankees have not to poach each other's stars. They have a big issue. But I think from the Mets' perspective, the Mets are probably looking at an extension between that Olsen and Goldschmidt valuation. And right now, I don't think Pete is accepting the fact that first basemen just don't go beyond that. There hasn't been a first baseman in a very long time that's earned that kind of money, probably since Pujols. There's a good reason for it, because as they age, they become DHs. And at the end of the day, you are what the market says you are. You're worth what the market says. And if the richest owner in sports isn't going to go much beyond the market to sign you, that should tell Pete, okay, maybe I need to look to compromise on my value instead of trying to get beyond what all first basemen have gotten in recent years.
Yep, and with these rumors around Alonso, the fact that the Mets are 2-5 in their last 7 games, a lot of things where Met fans, scratch their heads with this team. But one thing that we did hear over the last couple of days that it's a little, positive news. The Mets are going to retire 2 of their legendary players' numbers next year. Doc Gooden's number 16, Darryl Strawberry's number 18 in 2024. And Tom, we've seen it plenty of times on the Yankees end with all the 57 retired numbers that they have.
Listen, there's chances that Dwight and Doc have their numbers retired with the Yankees. We just don't. We lose it in the maze of numbers up there.
Fair. I think 18 is still available. But Corey, does Doc and Darryl deserve retired numbers at Citi Field?
Me personally, I say absolutely not. Now, if I had to pick one, I'd give a slight edge to Doc Gooden, just because he probably is the 3rd best pitcher in Mets franchise history. But for both of these players, I'm thinking about the Mets and when it comes to retired numbers. And the fan base, myself included, we were a little upset when we were younger, saying, the Mets never retire anybody's number. And for the longest time, it was just Tom Seaver, eventually being Mike Piazza. And over the last few seasons, and it started when the Wilpons, or in the last couple of years of their ownership, it seems like they're trying to now retro-fill a bunch of retirements. And I think it's personally a little bit cheesy when you're going back 3, 4, 5 decades. And Koosman, since this was like 5 decades since he pitched for the Mets, back when they retired his number a few years ago. I don't like this idea of backfilling these retirements. And Doc Gooden and Darryl Strawberry, right? How many guys have worn 16 and 18 since these guys played for the Mets in the 80s? I mean, we got Hideo Nomo wearing number 16, Derek Bell, Doug Mankiewicz, who was one of our
Travis Jankowski.
I know all of these names. Dice K, Matsuzaka, Alejandro De Aza. All right. I mean, look at these names who wore these numbers since these guys are retired. I personally don't like it. I like the idea now, and I started to appreciate this after the Piazza retirement. It's that you have a very selective list, all right? And it doesn't necessarily – you don't have to be a Hall of Famer, but you have to have done something to have some sort of lifetime achievement with the Mets. Like David Wright, he was a captain. He was with the Mets forever, faced the franchise for 2 decades. I think they should retire the number 5 at some point in the future. Keith Hernandez, they recently retired his number. Totally agree with it. That trade that they made in 1983 changed the entire course of that franchise. He was the first captain of the Mets, co-captain with Gary Carter. And you throw in on top of that all of the years now. He's got almost 2 decades in the SNY booth. So he's a Mets personality. You think of Keith Hernandez, you think of the New York Mets. All right. So these are guys where I think it should be a restricted list. I don't think Doc, and maybe Doc, again, because he was the 3rd best pitcher. But when I think of Doc Gooden and Darryl Strawberry, and I know Joe is going to agree with me on this one, I think about the what if. What if these guys didn't throw away their careers, their Met careers at least, by doing drugs? These guys could have been all-time Hall of Fame greats. I mean, you look at Darryl Strawberry's numbers with the Metropolitans. He was a 7-time All-Star in his 8-year Met career. 1988, 39 home runs. I mean, OPS of 911. That 1986 team, he was the cornerstone of the middle of that lineup. Doc Gooden, his numbers are crazy as well. These guys could have been absolute Hall of Famers in Major League Baseball and well warranted. But I don't think about these guys being all-time greats. I think of these guys being all-time what-ifs because of the issues they had.
I mean, the bottom line is Doc and Darryl are sad stories. They're not, and it's curious why we've gone down this road, because at the end of the day, Corey's absolutely right. They're what ifs, they're sad stories. Listen, Doc was here almost, I think it was 11 seasons. He was here 12 years, 11 seasons with the Mets. He did win a Cy Young. He is one of the all-time leaders in every pitching category. I can see that more. All right. I'll put him to the side. Darryl Strawberry got a problem with. All right. Darryl Strawberry was writing articles in the LA Times about how he wanted to be a Dodger in 1988 during the playoffs. All right. This guy, the second he became a free agent, he ran to LA. And it's so weird that you would honor a guy that not only threw his career away later in life, but ran to the Dodgers, who beat you in 88 and who many Met fans are still sore about Kirk Gibson limping around the bases. I mean, this is I just don't know why we've chosen to honor him. I don't think it was necessary. I don't think it was some big crime. And as far as number retirements, and I pick on the Yankees a lot, and I got to be fair. If I pick on the Yankees for retiring guys like Paul O'Neill and Reggie Jackson and guys who spent marginal amounts of time with the Yankees in the grand scheme of things, I have to criticize the Mets for the same. If you are not a transcendent player for that franchise, if you do not do something like Mike Piazza, for example, is a perfect Met example. He's only here 8 years, but at the end of the day, is there any person who was more iconic and meant more to the Mets franchise for that period of time than Mike Piazza? The answer is absolutely not. Between the big home runs he hit, the 9/11 games, the charities, all that stuff, the fact of the matter is him and Keith, to a certain degree, changed the franchise. When those guys arrived, everybody knew that the Mets were no longer a joke. And for me, that's worth something. And Keith, even a little bit, is a lifetime achievement award. If he wasn't in the booth, his number wouldn't be retired. Let's be real. But I got a problem with a guy like Darryl, who played here 7 years or whatever it was and ran off to LA. I'm sorry. I got a problem with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dwight has the better case over Darryl. I think Dwight has frankly the better. He's the Met longer, and he had a better career with the Mets. Yeah. I've been doing just kind of some looking, comparing Dwight to Mike Piazza. I think Dwight had a better career with the Mets than Piazza did, and he won a World Series. And he had definitely bigger peaks. And his honestly, his valleys, if you look at off years, they weren't bad. And his last year with the Mets was you almost don't want to count 94. That's also the strike year, but
yeah, we also knew problems at that time.
But before that, every year he had an ERA in the threes. He had a lot of years of ERAs in the twos. Doc Gooden, I think, definitely should have his number retired. And again, if you're saying Piazza is the bar, I don't understand how Dwight doesn't surpass him. He was here longer, he was better, and he won a World Series, and he was a cornerstone of that World Series.
Like I said, I have less of a problem with him. I think he has the same exact ERA as Jerry Koosman did at the Mets. And I agreed with Koosman. Koosman was here for some very, very bad teams, and his career ERA with the Mets is like 3.1. So that's a different story. He's a borderline Hall of Famer. I don't get the Darryl thing. And here's another thing that should enrage Met fans. Darryl Strawberry has more career postseason home runs with the Yankees than he does the Mets.
Sure does.
You can't retire a guy's number when he's got more career postseason numbers with the Yankees than he does the Mets.
George saved his career with the Mets too. George stepped in and saved him, helped save the guy, and he had some big home runs for us in the 90s.
6 during the playoffs, a few games.
Dwight also threw a no-hitter for the Yankees too. So it's just, it's just a good way to to how Citi Field already is a tribute to a different New York franchise. Just like retire guys who had nice careers with the Yankees, who also are Mets.
And again, continue that same thing with the Willie Mays stuff. I know it was a promise to Willie. I know Willie's an all-time great and all that stuff. There's no reason to retire Willie Mays' number with the Mets. I mean, it to me, it was silly. It's for fan ticket sales. The next person that should have been retired is David Wright. And we're going to have this conversation again because the Mets are filling out these numbers. Wright's going to be retired. Nobody's going to complain about that. So then who's going to come along next? You're going to have the conversation about Jacob deGrom, and deGrom, even more so than Strawberry, at least has the personal accolades and the
Dwight Gooden might have had a better career as a Met than David Wright did. I know David Wright was captain, but if you want to get down the numbers, Dwight Gooden was incredible. He was one of the best pitcher of baseball for a long time. Wright has he's captain and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it, but he might be a better player if you look at just the actual stats.
Two things about David: he was on a Hall of Fame trajectory before he got hurt, and two, he is the first and
Dwight.
He's the first and only Met in history to start and end his career. Except I think it was Ed Kramer, but that's it. It's David Wright. That's it. That's the only guy who started and ended and never left, and that's why David's different, and that's why he should be retired.
It's just disgusting. Kind of just flip it to the other side of town to just look at the Yankees. The quarter of available numbers are already retired by the New York Yankees, and it's a sad watch. Tom and I've done this. Yeah, Tom, we did this episode before.
I don't know if that exists anywhere.
Where we had to go through. Yeah. It is a great episode. I'll find it in the YouTube archives, but we went through number to number, and I think we took down like a quarter of the retired numbers out of it. And it's just like Joe mentioned before, Jackson shouldn't be retired.
5 years.
Paul O'Neill.
O'Neill wasn't even. Yeah, O'Neill, Pettit,
Billy Martin fired 6 times. You can't retire the guy's number.
It's unreal.
Fired 7 times though.
7 times. I'm sorry.
Especially if you got fired that many times. Billy Martin's up.
I was surprised that both Joe and Corey were so down on it, but I agree ultimately. Listen, how the Mets have done it, and most teams in baseball have done it. The retired number tradition is a high honor. Yep. The fact that you're the last guy or supposed last guy to be wearing this number is a big deal. So it's a little bit surprising that over the last couple of years now that the Mets have really went into this tradition. And I listen, Keith deserved it. The Willie Mays thing, publicity stunt, money grabber. David Wright will eventually deserve it. But then how far do you go? I get worried about that with the
Andy Chavez caught that ball. He might need his number retired.
Beltran looked at that ball. He should get one too.
Think about this. When the Mets retire Doc and Darrell's numbers, they are going to have the same number of retired numbers as the Pittsburgh Pirates, right? Who have been around more than 70 years. I think it was 1888 they were around. Forever. And you look at the guys who are retired on the Pittsburgh Pirates, Ralph Kiner, Willie Stargell, Honus Wagner, Roberto Clemente. These are
I don't think Honus Wagner even wore a number.
That's called doing it right when it comes to retirement.
I think they gave him where he hit in the
They didn't go back to 1895 and retire a number of a guy who delivered milk after the games. Like they actually stuck with their legend. So I respect it. I respect your guys' opinion on it. But regardless, it is happening. Strawberry and Gooden, 16 and 18, getting retired next year. So I would have gotten to Yankee stuff, Tom, but I really don't want to. So
it's cool seeing Everson Pereira.
Yeah, it's cool seeing Everson Pereira. You wonder who's going to get the call next. Obviously, hot rumors are Austin Wells. I'm seeing some kicking of the tires of Jason Dominguez, even though he just got the call at AAA. What's the likelihood of seeing Dominguez in the next month?
So my thought on that is if Dominguez is legitimately going to have the chance to break camp next year, then I say, let him come up and let him play. If he does not have that chance, and I'm not saying he should, if you're saying, listen, we want to get him at least half season at AAA before we consider bringing him up, I wouldn't, because I think it would send a bad message. I think it could be like a mixed signal kind of thing. Like, hey, Jason, come up now. Then you don't want to have him go on fire in spring training, and then you kind of want to put him on the team, and you get into a weird spot there. So I don't think I'd bring him up unless you are truly considering him on the opening day roster next year. Austin Wells, yeah, bring him up. Why not? He's been he's 26 at this point now.
I don't know what they're waiting for.
I don't know. Just letting him rot on the vine like every other Yankee prospect. But yeah, bring him up. Why not?
I think there's an interesting aspect to the Dominguez thing because he's come up and he's killed AAA in the less than 10 games he's been there. So then once the AAA season ends, and I'm not sure if they're going to be in the playoffs, the Scranton Wilkes-Barre or not. But once the AAA season ends, if Dominguez is on that hot of a tear, you have to decide as a GM, do I want to see if the kid can continue it into the major leagues? Because, hot hitters are hot hitters sometimes, whether they come up to the majors or they stay in the minors. Or do we let him cool off and reset him for camp and with the expectation that he's not going to be here? You know that if you bring him up, you have a predestined expectation for the fans that he is going to be competing for a starting job coming out of spring next year. So it really depends what the Yankees think as far as what that hot streak means. And if they think that can translate to the major league level this year, and they say, okay, he's got a ton of confidence. He's playing with a ton of confidence and the season's over in AAA. We're just going to bring him up and see if he can continue that. And worst comes to worst, he, sits on the bench for the last week or two. If he goes
it guess depends how they view him in their future. If they still, are considering trying to move him in a trade, then I don't think you want to bring him up because you don't want to hurt any potential value. The other thing to keep in mind, although you would logically think AAA is that next step up, AA tends to be where all the premier talent is in the minors. That is where your guys that are much, your younger guys, more raw talent. AAA, you have some of those, but it's a lot of the quadruple A guys. It's guys trying to fight to get back in the majors. Yeah. It could be actually easier to hit in AAA than it is in AA. Yeah, but he was hitting well at the end of AA too. So
yeah, AAA, you get a lot of those like Nick Evans guys. I know Nick Evans with the Mets. He was a guy who was always hitting like 300, on pace for 35 home runs in AAA, and then he came up to the major leagues and could barely keep a roster.
You got a lot of you got a lot of guys pitchers who can't quite make it, and they're just down there throwing 91 and. Young kids like Dominguez are just going to eat those meatballs up.
Exactly. And I do have one. I know we have a lot of shows that we still have to get to, but one actually intriguing question right now when we're looking at the Mets and the Yankees. And obviously, we can't say enough how dreadful of a New York sports season has been for baseball. But looking at the two teams, so we know the Mets really never got it going this year, and we were down on them around Memorial Day even. They had a little bit of life in June, a little bit of life with the All-Star break, but really, for the most part, since Memorial Day, negative vibes with the Mets. Yankees, really, it's been since like the start of July and around the All-Star break after, just completely imploded. And looking at the records of the two teams right now, the Yankees only have 2 more wins than the New York Metropolitans. I have to ask, maybe do a quick around the room before we move on to the next segment. Best of 7 series. Who do you have? This current roster of what we have, Mets or Yankees? Lord.
I actually say the Yankees because I think Cole can win 2 games by himself.
True.
I just don't think the Mets have an answer for that. The Mets offense would probably be 4-3 Yankees, and the Mets end up scoring more runs in the series. But
yeah,
I could see that.
That feels right. It feels like Cole gives you 2 8-inning outings. And the Yankees try to win another game 1-0.
Game 4, Cookie Carrasco versus Luis Severino.
Oh, that's gonna break World Series run records. Although I gotta say, watch, you'll get one of those 8-inning shutout balls from.
You could do like a fun. You could do like a fun promo. You could have like a fan in the stands. Like every run scored, you see a hot dog, and then at the end of the day, he's dead.
It's turned into a Savannah Bananas game while we're at it. Yeah, it would definitely go 7 just to extend the misery that is 2023 baseball in New York. And it's
I don't know how we've talked about these teams for a half hour.
I know. All right, well, let's move on from these teams. Why not? And we're gonna get into Chooch's pick of the week. Before we get there, Tom, Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, a place where you can see previews of things like Chooch's Pick of the Week. You also can see our Bears and our Bulls of the Week, our top performers and our lowest performers. We also do some post-game recaps and other fun things. Corey put some fun stuff up there from time to time. You can follow us at Empire State of Baseball. If you want to follow our accounts individually, it is at Corey Favs, at JR Pugs, at Rich J. Rivera, and at T. Waspel.
Yes, sir. All right. Chooch's Pick of the Week. We're going to just move right along. We got a lot of show to make up here, so we're going to toss it right to Matt now for Chooch's Pick of the Week. Winning record so far, 6-5 after we counted up the numbers right. So here we go with Matt and Chooch's Pick of the Week.
What's up, ESB crew? Chooch is back with Chooch's Pick of the Week. We're coming down to the final month of the season, and I think this week we're going to start a late-in-week matchup versus the top 2 NL teams, the Braves versus the Dodgers, starting Thursday night, 4-game set. This very well may be your NLCS right here. So this is a great preview. I think the Braves are going to stay hot. Braves are going to take this series. What do you guys think?
All right, so we got ground to catch up here. Chooch's Pick of the Week, Braves Dodgers. He's got the Braves taking out LA, which Dodgers are the home team. Corey Favs, Dodgers Braves.
I disagree, even split.
Okay.
I'm actually going Dodgers here. I actually think that Mookie and Freeman have surpassed Ronald Acuna as MVP.
Wow.
I mean, not going on a limb here, but I'll take the Braves.
I'm also with Corey Favs. It's going to be an awesome series. It's going to be an even split, 2-2, Dodgers Braves. NLCS, though? I'd say that was a good assessment there by Matt. I mean, you never know. Any team could take out any team in the best-of-5 series.
That'd be much CTV.
Correct.
But it would be much CTV. So we'll see when we get there. In the meantime, Joseph, what we got on what's happening over on Twitch?
You can download Twitch on your smartphone app. You can view us on there as well. Download Twitch, subscribe to Empire State of Baseball. Find the link on the link tree, both in our Instagram and X profiles, and you can get the notification anytime we go live.
Yes, sir. Thanks for that, Twitch. And thank you, Matt, of course, for Chooch's Pick of the Week. And let's move this thing on to Triple Play. And for today's Triple Play segment, we're going to be covering the final month of the regular season. It's unreal that we have reached this point of the year where we have to think about the final home stretches for a lot of these teams. You got teams that are in the mix for playoff spots. That American League wild card is insane. We put up a poll earlier today. Which of those AL wild card teams currently in the mix will find themselves out of the mix? And it's hard to think that a team like the Rays, the Rangers, or the Astros could miss the playoffs. But with the Mariners surging and the Baltimore Orioles maintaining their lead, you're going to see a really good team miss the playoffs in the American League end. So I'm going to start with that question right there. For our triple play bit here, the team that is currently in the playoff picture that will miss the MLB postseason will be Corey.
I'm going with the coldest team in baseball right now. 1-9 in their last 10 games. I mentioned it before. The Texas Rangers. They are currently right now 6 games back of wild card number 1, basically tied with Houston for the 2nd and 3rd wild card spots. 2.5 games up on the Blue Jays, 4.5 over Boston. Texas, I don't know what happened. They have gone ice cold. I know Adolis Garcia cooled off a bit in the month of August, and they are currently losing 3-0 to your very own New York Metropolitans. I'm going Texas.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Corey. I'm gonna be boring, and I know I don't have to figure out what happened. I know what happened. The pitching injuries have added up. No DeGrom, no Eovaldi, and not for nothing, I thought the Texas Rangers were playing over their head to start the season anyway. So I think it's the Texas Rangers, and we already know Mariners are red hot. They're not getting kicked out of the playoffs, and we know the Astros are not going to be out of the playoffs. It's the Texas Rangers.
So I would say if the Rays were not 6 games up in the wild card, I would say the Rays, because they have a brutal schedule coming down. But I think 6 games is a lot to overcome. So going off another team that has a tough schedule coming to finish the season out, I'm going to go with the Phillies to miss the playoffs.
I have the Chicago Cubs missing the playoffs, and it's been a nice story for Chicago that went from arguably a seller going into July to a buyer, and they're off the momentum of some of their great bats, including Cody Bellinger, who's an impending free agent. I just don't think they have enough pitching to really get them through this last month of the season. When you're still running Jameson Taillon out there, who's got one of the worst records in baseball, and you're trying to crack a playoff spot. I don't know if the Cubs have enough in their pitching. I do believe in their bats. I think their offensive core is sick, but I have the Cubs falling out of the NL wild card at some point. So we're going to turn it over to our second question here, or our second finish to sentence, rather. The team that is currently out of the playoff picture that will make the MLB postseason will be...
And I'm going with the Toronto Blue Jays. They are 2.5 out. They will be the team that dethrones the Rangers. Blue Jays have a pretty decent schedule, I believe, down the stretch. Blue Jays will dethrone the Texas Rangers to grab the last wild card spot in the AL.
I hate to say it, if I got the Rangers out, it's got to be the Blue Jays in, because I don't see Boston making a run. I don't think they have enough pieces. The Angels are toast. And in the NL, I don't think anybody wants to make the playoffs in that wild card race. So none of those guys would surprise me if anybody else fell off.
I also have the Blue Jays. They have one of the easiest schedules coming home for the next 6 weeks. They have also a 4-game set with the Rangers in Toronto starting on September 11th. So that is going to be a big set. I'm going to already call that Chooch needs to pick that series once we get there. Yeah, and I think the Blue Jays are going to finally get themselves into the playoffs.
Chooch will pick Royals Detroit or something stupid.
To save himself, yes. So I have the Cubs getting knocked out of the current playoff picture. So I have another NL Central team climbing in there, and that's the Cincinnati Reds, who have also, again, another great story out of the NL Central. No one expected them to do what they're doing this year with the young infields that they have. And I know Matt McLain just went on the IL, so that kind of stings in that matter. They still have a young Cornelli, De La Cruz, and Spencer Steer that's leading the charge. They have Jake Fraley coming off the IL, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. They have Hunter Green, who just came back off the IL. So some of the troops are coming back, even though they did lose a big player in McLean. I see the Reds going on a nice 2-week tear to get that third wild card spot and snatch it from the Chicago Cubs there. So I got the Reds taking that final spot. And finally, our third topic here, the player that will lead their playoff contending team into the MLB postseason will be...
And this is going to be Corbin Carroll, and we discussed him a lot last week where he did cool off a little bit. And ironically, as we saw Corbin Carroll cool off, so did the Diamondbacks. And they actually dipped out of the playoff picture very briefly. I think they ended up jumping the Giants to get back in the playoff picture. So, and ironically, Corbin Carroll has heated up over the last week. So I'm going with Corbin Carroll. I think I'm not going to say he's as hot as he was the first 3 months of the season, but he's certainly better than the player we saw throughout the end of July through the first half of August. So he'll produce somewhere in the middle. And I think the Diamondbacks tread water enough to get that third and final wildcard spot in the NL.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with Jose Altuve here. Listen, it's been a quiet season for the Astros, something they've needed. But Altuve quietly has had a 300 batting average, over a 400 on base percentage. Only played about 62 games this year due to a couple of injuries, especially to start the year. But there is something to be said about that guy playing second base, heading into a playoff stretch. He has ice in his veins, and the Astros are not going to miss the playoffs with him. If I could pick him, Bregman, and Tucker, I'd pick all three, but I'm going to pick Altuve.
I'm going to roll with the team you all know I'm going to roll with my Birds, with the Baltimore Orioles. And I'm going to say Gunnar Henderson, who has been incredible this season. I'm going to say he's been hot, and he's going to continue to be hot, and it's going to be all fun down in Birdland come October.
Joe mentioned like half the Astros offense, but forgot to mention the one I'm going to mention in Yordan Alvarez. Alvarez, still great numbers despite missing some time in the regular season. 283 batting average, 21 homers, 73 RBIs in that 307 at bat time frame, which is more Yordan Alvarez. But still, I feel like it's been a quiet year for Alvarez, even though he's been great. I think he's just going to take over this month in the same way that we've seen J-Rod just absolutely take over for the Seattle Mariners. I think the Astros are not going to let the Mariners quietly just take first place from them. I think some of their big bats, you mentioned Altuve, Joe. I think it's going to be Alvarez that's going to wake this Astros team up and try to secure that American League West once again. But that is it for our triple play. Well, we certainly caught up there, guys. Full speed ahead. Love it. But do want to talk about Twitter, also known as X, also known as Twitter. We are live on X/Twitter. You can check us out there. Even though the comment stream don't come through what we normally see on YouTube and Twitch. And I always recommend, if you're going to do the chat, just jump over to YouTube and Twitch. But if you're still with us on Twitter, thanks for joining us. And of course, we have a lot of engagements there, over 2,200 followers and counting. So thank you for all the engagements that we've seen on Twitter/X over the last year and a half. And hopefully we continue that into the playoffs and off season ahead. But let's wrap things up, at least segment-wise, with a player to be named later. It is our game segment, and we're going to take a look here at the standings because we got some time back now. Joe leading the charge with 15. Tom in second place at 13. I was once in first place by a good margin. I'm down to third here. And Corey Favs still in seventh. It's still in fourth. I said seventh when there's four of us. It's still in fourth with 7 points, but you still have a chance to come back. And you never know. One of those core curriculums where you can get 7 points within a day.
14 answers.
Never know. Yeah, I'm keeping pace with both of our New York sports teams right now, holding up the rear.
Most representative of the New York baseball scene.
Yeah.
That's sad. Well, we saw the graphic flash up before, so I guess we'll start with the Mets here. Joe, who is our player to be named later? Well, that's
okay. This player compiled an 8-year career in Major League Baseball. He played 5 seasons with the New York Mets. This player started in 3 postseason games with the New York Mets and posted a 2.63 ERA in those games. This player would later sign with the New York Yankees in May of 2012. He held a 4.97 ERA and 15 starts for the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders. Who is this player?
It's 8-year career, 5 with the New York Metropolitans. Started in 3 postseason games.
So you would think he was there in those mid 2000s Mets?
Late 2000s. Maybe ended his tenure as a minor league invite, spring training invite.
I know Bartolo Colon was a brief Yankee, but I think he was actually on the major league team.
Yeah, but Bartolo also pitched like 22 years.
Yeah. Oh, well, I missed the 8-year part. My apologies.
I think it's that last fact that's kind of throwing me off here.
I'm just going to ignore that because if he signed with the Yankees, but he were only getting stats from Scranton, I mean, he never got,
And those are those weird, like the 12, 13, 14 Yankees that weren't that good at all. So they must have been just kicking the tires on somebody there.
John Maine.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Wow, look at that.
That is correct.
I didn't even know he had time with the Yankees organization.
John Maine, one of my favorites.
Wow.
I remember him
That's in that Chris Benson deal.
Yeah.
I remember he did a rehab when I worked for the Thunder for the year. He wasn't rehabbing with the Thunder, but he was there with the Binghamton Mets. And we were there for a John Maine game. And he bought steaks for everyone.
Look at that.
That was nice. Nice of him.
He did. Yeah. And it was just that one season with the Yankees organization. Did he go up to the main roster at one point? It looked like I think he did. I think he actually did. No, he did not. He did not.
I kind of remember them. I kind of remember him being signed though. Yeah, because he was like a bit of a fan favorite-y kind of guy for the Mets for a little bit there.
He was. He had a solid 06, 07, and then 08 was in. 09 onwards fell apart.
Started hurting his arm, fell off more than.
I remember, never forget that one outing where Jerry Manuel pulled him after 4 pitches because he threw 4 straight balls.
He was down to like low 80s.
Oh, boy.
I would have seen him rehabbing in 2010, 2009? 2009, maybe?
Well,
that's probably when he started having
I'm going to just take off a trick of the trade off the books here. I see that he was in the Chris Benson deal. That's how the Mets acquired him. It was Jorge Julio and John Maine for Chris Benson. So that's interesting.
And I think Julio was a bigger name in that trade, too, I remember.
All righty. Tom, what we got on the Yankees end?
All right. This is a MLB player, a 14-year career in which he played 3 of those seasons with the New York Yankees. He is a 5-time All-Star, and he won Rookie of the Year. And I think is the best hint we've had on any player to be named later. This player appeared on the famous Simpsons episode titled Homer at the Bat. This
Jose Canseco.
This was in the episode, not this player. This is one of those, if you know the episode, which is, it could be the most famous Simpsons episode of all time. It's got to help you.
And I didn't even know Canseco was in the episode.
He is in the episode.
Was it Darryl Strawberry?
Also in the episode, not Darryl Strawberry.
I know he wasn't a Yankee at any point. I know Ken Griffey was in the episode.
He also was in the episode. It's not him.
This was an early Simpsons episode.
It's like season 3. Yep.
Oh, so we're going
early 90s. It's early
90s.
There's a crazy amount of guys in the episode who are former Yankees. I think
not my my guess. I think Clemens was also in the episode.
Clemens
too, right?
is in the episode. Another player who it is not. It's not him though. Another former Yankee.
Okay.
Obviously.
Former Yankee, early 90s, 3 seasons.
Damn good player. This ain't no scrub.
Yeah, this is a 14-year guy. He's got some All-Stars, Rookie of the Year.
He's a cartoon. That's I mean, that alone.
So it's gotta be mid 90s.
You're missing 3 more former Yankees, including this player.
Did Wade Boggs play more than 3 years?
He was in the episode. It's not Wade Boggs.
Yeah. Oh man,
he played more than 14 years though.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah.
David Justice.
No, not in the episode. Not this player.
Jim Leyritz.
No.
Yeah.
It's. I was gonna say it's. He kind of like. I don't know. He definitely was a guy in the time. You can see he has accolades. 5-time All-Star. Not a guy. Not a name
he's played.
Not a name that comes up a lot. I did use him in the grid.
Not a name that comes up.
Yesterday.
Huh.
Yesterday, there's the Yankees and the Immaculate Grid. And I used him. That's why he was on my mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Early 90s Yankees. Early 90s Yankees. Well, he might have not been a Yankee at that time, so he could have been a Yankee in the 80s. Or
he didn't have to be a Yankee at the time of the episode. No.
Okay, that changed a little bit.
He was he at the time. I think he actually might have.
I feel like if it's the Hall of Famer, you would have put it up there.
He was he was either a Yankee or he was, if he wasn't a Yankee at the time, he was a Yankee recently around the time of the episode. See when the episode came out.
No.
I doubt he was in the episode, but let's go Ruben Sierra.
Not Ruben Sierra, no.
I like to guess.
Love a good Ruben Sierra.
With the rest of those Hall of Famers.
Well, it's funny. It's also a lot of guys who you would think would be in the Hall of Fame who aren't, because you got Canseco, you got Clemens.
Oh, like your Dave Magnadins, your.
The episode also has Don Mattingly, another non-Hall of Famer. Has Darryl, another non-Hall of Famer, but guys at the time you would have probably assumed would be Hall of Famers. Kind of fun.
Yeah.
Cecil Fielder.
Not Cecil. No.
Tim Raines.
Not Tim Raines. Tim Raines.
Yeah, I
what was that?
Outside.
Willie Davis.
Not Chili Davis. No.
Outside of the
earlier.
Danny Tartable. Jay Buhner.
Not Jay Buhner.
Nick Johnson.
That's a lot later.
I am deferring the point to Tom because I'm outside of like Canseco and a couple of the others.
I feel like I'm running on fumes here.
We were looking for Steve Sax.
Steve Sax.
I was getting there. My next guest was going to be Pat Kelly.
Pat Kelly would have a guess for this time. This is looking for Steve Sax.
That was an interesting one though with the episode.
It's a great episode.
Steve Sax got animated.
Listen, at the time the episode came out in '92. At that point, he was he had been to his 5 All-Stars. He was a Dodger, then a Yankee. He was a White Sox later.
Yankees, just like
89 to 91.
Okay, so just prior to the episode was early 90s, I assume.
90. It came out. I looked up. It was February of 92. So it probably technically was probably made when he was still a Yankee. Probably made late 91.
Gotcha.
Well, they're going to be a little kilter on the update, but Tom's tied now. We have a first place tie between Tom and Joe. Tom picked up 2 big points here. So very nice. All righty. I really hope Ned Flanders struck out Steve Sax in that episode because
Ned Flanders wasn't on the squad. It was Homer was getting replaced by all these all-stars. It's a really good episode.
Well, maybe you can catch the episode on YouTube. What do we got over on YouTube there, Corey Favs?
Listen, download that YouTube app. By now, you should all have it. If you don't have the YouTube app, I don't know what year you're living in right now, but download YouTube. We are airing live, as we've mentioned before. We post all of our videos. If you'd like to watch a full episode, or if you'd like to watch some of the clips, we'll post clips of the show. We'll post fun clips, just fun articles. We'll post everything on YouTube. So go ahead, like, share, and subscribe at Empire State of Baseball on YouTube.
And here we got, go for it, Corey.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, listen, we got a little bit of a change of timings over the next few weeks. We mentioned way earlier, we're last week of August, Labor Day weekend, just a few days away. I know a lot of people end up taking a couple of extra days. Most of us get the Monday. I'm actually adding a Friday to it as well. Some people will take the Tuesday. But want to recap our time slots for the next few weeks, just so all of you at home know when to tune in. Episode 60, which is our next episode, rather than airing on Labor Day weekend on that Monday evening, we're going to push it back one day to Tuesday, September 5th, at our usual time slot at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 Central for those out in Chicago listening in. We're going to take a bye week, though, the week after. It's the start of football season. A lot of us will be tuning in. The Jets play on that Monday night. Our good buddy Rich is on vacation as well, so we're going to give everyone a bye week. But after that, episode 61 will return to our usual Monday spot. However, it'll be at 7 p.m. EST, and we'll be airing at 7 p.m. EST going forward throughout the remainder of the football season. Eventually, we'll be shifting back probably to our 8 p.m. time slots at some point in time, but it will be 7 p.m. for the foreseeable future as of the 8th.
Yes, so we have to cater to the football faithful, which there are plenty of. The NFL season kicks off in just a couple weeks' time. The Monday Night Football will start on that Monday, the September 11th that Corey mentioned. I think there's going to be a couple games that might get into that 7 o'clock time, but for the most part, they are 8 o'clock starts once you get into, I think, week 3 or week 4 of the season. So there might be a couple games to get in the mix with, but no big deal there. Now we have 3 minutes left here, and I want to look at the time. And I know the football season is coming up, so I got a football question. And because I saw some rankings on the other day, and I was really curious what you guys thought. Which sports network has the best NFL theme of all time? So
that's a very good question.
Yes, ESPN, ABC, NBC. What do you guys think?
So NBC gets credit for the Sunday Night Carry song. ESPN gets a credit for the All My Rowdy Friends on Monday night. Like, that's iconic. But like, as far as like when I turn on the TV on my Sunday morning, I start my ritual with a Sunday morning talk show. You know, I go to CBS. That's it. Maybe because I'm a Jet fan and the Jets are on CBS. I can't stand half the Fox guys. Some of those guys are way between Jimmy Johnson and Terry Bradshaw. We got too many guys in adult diapers that need to retire.
We're just shipping blue pills. We're just listen, guys, get it up.
CBS. It's CBS for me.
I'm actually going to go a very unpopular opinion because it's the least popular of the time slots. I love the Thursday Night Football theme, the NFL Network theme too.
Wow.
So it has that. It has the orchestra to it. It's very powerful. It's just a shame that the Thursday Night Football games tend to be absolutely dreadful for the most part. But that music, though, I love it. Gotta give it a listen to. It's got a powerful orchestra. So I'm all for the Thursday Night Football theme. But I will agree with Joe, though. I tend to watch CBS if I'm not watching Red Zone.
Mm-hmm.
The Sunday Night Football song might be the greatest song that's ever existed. So for those who know Sunday Night Football, Al and Chris, best on TV, not anymore together, right? Because Al's gone, but they were the best on TV, and best song.
If I had to work my rankings up, I'd say Monday Night Football at 3, Fox at 2, CBS at number 1. I think there's an epicness to the CBS football theme that's just unparalleled, and I'm all about it.
There's nothing that gets me actually more excited than the Red Zone countdown. The Red Zone countdown.
Yeah.
Scott comes on.
I love when the Red Zone does the witching hour.
Oh, I love everything about Red Zone.
The witching hour, the doomsday clock. I mean, you got to give the NFL credit. Above all, NFL knows how to make theater out of their regular season. It is unparalleled.
Well, that's 7 hours of commercial-free football. Only kicks off next Sunday or the following Sunday after Labor Day. So, Corey, let's shoot it around the room, though, for some final thank yous. What do we got here?
Listen, final thank yous. I want to give a thank you to all of you gentlemen, all right? It's a Monday night. Our sports teams are terrible. And like Tom said before, we found a way to talk Mets and Yankees for over 30 minutes tonight. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
I want to thank Steve Sachs for existing. Appreciate you, bud. Thanks for listening.
I want to thank Aaron Rodgers for playing the other day. Gave us something to watch in preseason. So, I'm hopeful. Jets look like they're coming in healthy, so
toasting marshmallows over this dumpster fire. It's going to be amazing.
Well, I just want to actually thank people who are part of tonight's show, including Matt. Thank you for the pick, and hopefully that record improves to 7-5, or not. It's going to be a 500 record going into the final stretch here of the season. No thank you to our New York baseball teams at all, but thank you to you three gentlemen for being fantastic hosts all season long. So we will see you all, though, next Tuesday. Remember, Tuesday night, September the 5th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Twitch, Twitter, X, and YouTube. Take care.